quite windy outside.
Oh my God.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
so it is.
Okay. Okay, we're all here, so I will call this special St. Patrick's Day regular meeting of the Cornwall Board of Selectmen to order. First thing is approval of the minutes of March 3. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of March 3rd with one editing correction. Where it says appointments, the board addressed the vacancy on the zoning board of appeals. It should be on the board of assessment appeals,
Good one.
created by, but then later on it says the board of assessment appeals. So just for clarity purposes, it should say the board of assessment appeals in both places.
Okay,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Additions to the agenda, I had two. One is funding letter for the county dispatch, and the second is open space fund, Cornwall Conservation Trust request.
Okay.
Are there any other additions? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Communications. I had one that I believe I sent on to everybody from Art Ginger, continuing his campaign to reduce speed in West Cornwall, thanking us for the work done to date, requesting that we put up some more fluorescent green go slow signs.
Do we have any left, or do we use them all? I know we bought extra, but it seems like
Yeah.
they were distributed, so are they all gone, or do we have more?
Please slow down. I don't know, I'll find out tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But they do stand out, and I'm glad to hear that they are working, so whatever we can do to slow things down, I think we'll pursue. It's a modest amount, and if it slows things down in addition to whatever.
Yeah, so he also asked about contacting the commercial companies that are speeding.
Yeah,
So he said he would be willing to do that, or are we going to do that? Because that was also an option. I mean, I've called contractors and for other situations where I've seen them speeding here, there, or wherever, and they take it pretty seriously.
right. So anyway, I'll talk to him and see what he's observed. Okay. Any other thoughts on Art's letter?
No, it's great. The work
Okay.
he's done is great.
Good. Okay. Any other communications?
We received a letter, was it from the Van Dorns, about their address on Bradford Road?
Yes.
Changing it from Falls Village to West Cornwall.
Right. That's
Were you able to get anywhere on that?
that's number 5. Margin Bradford
Yep.
Road postal
Okay.
request.
And then, let me just look here. Resubmitting, I know, we lost the thing. Resubmitting the 31 Popple Swamp Road wetlands application. When will that happen?
Right, that will happen at the next wetlands meeting, so that's first week in April. Right.
I assume that part of the reason is to let the snow.
It is.
Right.
I just wanted to see when it will be.
Yeah, we're set with that. Other communications, I met with Laszlo and Rocco of the Cornwall website today with members of the town office. They're redesigning the website and wanted some input from town workers as far as how does the site work, how it could be improved. we had a good dialogue for about half an hour. So they're going to do a mock-up of a new design for the website. I extended our appreciation for all they do. This is a volunteer effort that really does a good job. So, and they're going to come back once they incorporate some of the ideas, and I suggested they make a presentation in front of this board. We haven't ever talked about the website, but we can certainly, it's important, increasingly important part of the town, so we can have them come and do a presentation.
Right, so it's officially an unofficial website.
Right.
Because it's not the town website, it's by a private group.
Citizens group.
Private citizens group.
Right.
But they've already changed some of it to
Right.
try to make it more mobile friendly,
Right.
which is good.
So anyway, it's exciting. I think it's good to keep things up to date and as usable as possible. So it's going to be Rocco thought it'd probably be a 5 or 6 month process before it's all done, but they'll come to us fairly soon with some ideas, the new architecture, design, layout, this kind of stuff. So anyway, so that's up. Another communication today was from Ralph Desnudis. Now that spring is closer, he is going to start the West Cornwall Firehouse. We've gotten an insurance settlement for that, so we're set, according to Barbara, to proceed. We've accepted Ralph's bid.
That was for the accident that happened there?
Yes. Okay. And then as far as the town hall roof, ice conditions we've had, along with probably everybody else in Connecticut, he had some ideas, and we've had ice jams. The basic problem he feels is there's no ice and water shield underneath the shingles. So what we also have no insulation in here, so the snow melts off, hits the edge and freezes, as you can see in many places. And he's doing some estimates on everything from insulating the roof to new shingles to repairing a lot of the copper gutters, different types of gutter systems. He said also another year, what he would suggest if we have the same type of heavy snow is he would shovel off all our eaves for $300. He said that's probably the most effective thing we can do in the short term. And I suggested we have another evening meeting with him and maybe Tom. There was some damage to the columns, which they felt could be fairly easily fixed. Take a look at let Ralph do some estimates of various things, and probably he said the best short-term thing is stay after it once we get this condition now that we know it's big, and we'll do some major plan about whether, and we are looking at energy audit for the whole building, so in a month or so we can take a look at some options for
damage
this
that did
building.
occur
Right.
was it confined to the columns? Or
Pretty much.
Was there interior things that happened?
To the columns, or?
No, the water
I don't
coming-
think it was mostly,
Did water come into the building anyway?
not this year. It has come in, it came in last year, so we're gaining at least the damage from the outside gaining this year. But,
So it
no.
has occurred in the past?
Right, but so we seem to at least move the damage outside. They both felt there should be weep holes in the columns, so that if the water does,
Right.
and there's another, even like a window or something in the back we can take out. So any water that goes in another heating season, we can make sure it goes out of the columns and doesn't accumulate in there. Apparently it's fairly standard to have columns, to have, weep holes in the bottom to drain. So anyway, that's my suggestion, is April. Sometime we'll have a special meeting just to look at where the building's at, and Ralph will have some figures as far as what are some of the options.
So we had talked about lining those gutters in the fall.
Right, Ralph did do that.
Did that happen?
Yes.
So how did the water end up in the columns if we lined the gutters to divert the water to the downspouts?
My guess is what happened was that without having gone up there, my guess is that the ice jams backed up underneath the shingles, so even if the gutters, there's sunken gutters, if you don't have proper ice and water shield, the water can still go up behind the gutter and then down.
Well, the water's gonna go up anyway, even if you have ice and water barrier, that's just to keep it from infiltrating into the building. The ice could still be there, it's just not gonna infiltrate.
I think the answer is the water never got to the gutters.
It just didn't get to the gutters.
That would be my, in the same way you see, these gutters happen to be inside the construction,
Right.
but gutters that hang outside the construction, I
Right.
think it's probably the same kind of thing. The water, well, if the water did get to the gutter, it froze.
Yeah.
And the water must have worked its way up, and
Right.
then instead of coming into
Because
the
what
building.
it's going,
Yeah,
it's
so
going
it's-
off a heated roof into an unheated soffit. So
Right.
as soon as it hits that unheated space, it's gonna freeze. But Ralph has pictures
Yeah,
and
good.
whatever, so we can dig into it another time. But anyway, he is thinking about it. Any other communications? Public comments? Any public comments? Cornwall 275th Committee has been meeting weekly. They've been making a lot of progress nailing down a series of events for next summer and fall. The biggest events are probably a combination games, parade, dinner, dance here in Cornwall Village on August 1st. Park and Rec has decided to forego the usual July Fest and combine these events, so they would do the games. On Sunday, August 9th, the HVA would be having their flotilla around the bridge in West Cornwall. So they're working on that. And then on September 19th, there would be some sort of bridge dinner dance. Very local, not as epic as the bridge dances of the past, but still a nice community event with the band and food, socializing on, I think that's a Saturday evening.
And that 275th committee is doing all of this? Planning it all? And
They're doing, well,
Make it
yeah,
happen.
they're coordinating these things, plus they're doing a calendar. Side groups are doing other things, like the Historic Society, HVA, are doing things. The library may be doing some things. But the school may be doing some things. But this committee is sort of coordinating the events, publicizing. And we will, at some point, get a budget together, which will probably require town funds, so we would, my thinking is probably go to the annual budget meeting and approve some funds to be used for these events. So that would get that money in place ahead of summer.
And are they gonna make a formal request?
Yeah,
We would
I think they're still
request
working.
this much money and that's how much we're gonna take to the town meeting?
yeah. Board of Finance time. Yeah, so the biggest thing is food and band, entertainment for the celebrations at this point, but they're working on sharpening those figures. So anyway, it's coming along really well. Working on a logo, a lot of different energy, t-shirts,
Flag.
flag, Cornwall Association's doing a flag contest.
Yes.
So there's, I mean, for a small town, there's gonna be plenty of celebration, I think. So it's gonna be good. Let's see, generator at the West Cornwall Firehouse. We received good word that our grant for $37,000 was approved. $29,000 of that would be a federal share, and $9,000 of that would be the town match. Some of that $9,000 of the town match would be in-kind services. The highway department would do some of the site preparation and preparation for the pad for the generator. So what, again, we would have to do is we'd go to a town meeting, we'd have to appropriate the 37,000 and then get reimbursed. So that would be another thing to go to the Board of Finance and the town meeting, goal of getting that on the May town meeting agenda.
Is that something that goes out to bid?
Yes, we bid the installation of the generator. We'd have some,
What about the generator itself? Like what brand are?
well, we're gonna spec it out. It's basically gonna be sized, we're probably gonna prefer several types that are gonna be preferred. And it's gonna be like a little working group
Yeah.
that's gonna work on it, so, yeah, but we do have to bid it out. So anyway, so that's good, that's going on. Let's see, highway resurfacing. I think I sent you tried to send you the copy of the latest proposal for April road resurfacing. It came in a really small one. Here's a copy of it. We
talked about this the last time.
we made a more accurate list of road length and width, so we're able to do Cherry Hill, Cream Hill, Dibble Hill, Pierce Lane.
We just do Dibble?
Those were just asphalted. This is doing
Oh, the
these
chip seal.
chip seal on top.
So that
So
actually
that's one of the
lasts.
reasons they want to do that, is to
Yeah.
preserve all the work that was done last summer. Wright Road, or that may be Cogswell.
You're saying part of Green Hill is 22 feet wide?
Right.
That's from the school to,
The school to the end of Rattlesnake is 22 feet wide because that used to be a state road.
right,
So it's 22 feet wide, and then when it goes down to Town Road from Rattlesnake Road north, north,
up and
it's,
over, up
yeah,
and over,
it's-
it's,
that's 16.
is it only 16 over
Yeah.
the farm?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
It's only 2.6 miles. It's not going to go that much further past Rattlesnake.
So,
Yeah.
so the whole length of Cream Hill is 4.1 miles.
I guess that's why it's tough passing another car on that section of the
Yeah.
road.
But why
Trying
shoulders?
to pass cars.
Not pass, I mean, passing. This way.
Cherry Hill.
Well, we talked about the three kinds of aggregate that would be used.
Right.
And included that the,
Quarter-inch stone seems to be the best. It's held up well over this winter. The grits, which sounds like a breakfast food, but it's actually stone. It's a finer, sort of like a rock dust, and Jim and I both feel the heavier duty stone is a better wearing surface than a lighter grits.
and what the budget for this?
So we have $141,000 at this point.
This seems great, that's great, we're gonna get a lot done for the money, and we like the material that was used, that's what was used last year, seemed to hold up real well. To me, what appears to me to be the only constraint would be that winter ends in time, and that we can get the sand up,
Yeah, so they are, going.
which is,
So they're gonna start cleaning out the sand shed tomorrow and hauling in stone tomorrow if we approve this. They're ready to
Really?
go, yeah. And we're lining up sweepers to get that all going. So, winter's over.
I guess winter's over.
And
You hope.
it's okay for them to do that if the snow that they're calling for this weekend actually happens?
Well, we're putting it's the same thing we did last year. We're putting our sand pile outside. We still have plenty of sand for if it does snow.
And it won't.
This just gets
It's
it in.
not gonna
So
freeze.
all the stone's gonna go inside and be covered
Yeah.
by the shed.
Okay.
So it's almost identical to what we had last year, although Terry Moore Terry Burke said that last year St. Patrick's Day there was bare ground all out throughout Cornwall, so I guess we are slightly. Anyway, whatever. So they're ready to go. We did have a late spring last year, and it seemed like, even though it was still cool, it held up. So I think that's the best we can do. So I'd make a motion that we accept Seymour Sealing proposal to cover 5 roads with MC 3000 with 1/4 inch Tilcon stone.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second, or you second?
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tires, right. Yeah, maybe right, maybe Cogswell, depending on how right's looking a little bit rough after the winter. The tire situation, Jim did some quotes from local vendors, found that Tosi Brothers in Torrington is on the state bid contract, so we're able to get prices for tires quite a bit less than we originally thought. So instead of being close to $2,000 per tire, thanks to the state of Connecticut bid process, we can get tires, I believe they're 10-ply Michelin tires for the loader for $1,200, $1,271. So that would make a total price of $56.81.48 for the to replace the tires on the back loader after 15 years. So
Compared to how much were we talking?
we were talking almost 8,000. So I'd make a motion that we accept Jim's recommendation to outfit the loader with new tires, accepting the proposal from Tosi Brothers.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? We are,
Glad that he went out and looked for other prices instead of just
right,
going with the first option.
we are still presently under budget. We've spent $30,000 out of a $40,000 repair line for town equipment. We've had all the trucks being serviced now, so we may go over with this tire amount. We've talked to the Board of Finance about this, and we still haven't tapped into our contingency fund of $28,000, but as we are through winter officially,
He keeps saying
we
that.
got plenty of, the truck's in good shape. We got plenty of sand and salt in case we get some nasty surprises, so I would say this is a good thing to get going.
Well, no matter what, winter ends on Saturday, doesn't it?
Friday. Friday.
Officially on the calendar.
The calendar, that's right, so then it's,
That's a
Yeah, that's what they
good
tell us.
Okay, so any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Let's see, we did get a request from the Van Dorn families from Bradford Road who wanted to switch to West Cornwall 06796 postal address. The parts of Cornwall Hollow, the east part of Cornwall Hollow is serviced by the Falls Village Post Office, 06731, but
06031.
06031. But it's hard, as they say, in the age of GPS, and sometimes they don't confuses delivery services to get things delivered to Cornwall with a Falls Village postal address. I did talk to people at the West Cornwall Post Office. They said right now they're flat out with the route they've got, and they're hesitant to expand their route because it takes a long time to get through the route as it is. So without reducing their route, they'd be hesitant to take on more. So anyway, I'm still gonna talk to, see how much extra time this would actually be or whatever, so.
Who's still on that 06031 route? Just Hopway Hill, Bradford Road?
Probably part of,
Ford Hill maybe?
Is
No, Ford Hill is
Fox
not.
Road? They're not, right?
They're
Lake
not,
Road's
but,
not.
what they call Hollenbeck Road, Route
Yeah.
63.
They're on it too.
There are half
Because
dozen.
North Goshen Road's not on it, they're Goshen now.
Are they?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're 06756.
Did they used to be Falls Village?
They did, for a long time, yeah.
Huh,
Till, Robert Goldberg,
okay.
he bought a house up there and people were confusing it with Whoopi Goldberg. So he petitioned to have an 06756 so it wouldn't get confused, and so that's when that road got turned over.
Hmm.
So there's really not much left.
Right, and there's also these post boxes are right at the end of the road.
Yeah,
So-
they're right there. Just-
So anyway, we're gonna continue to pursue
Good.
this on behalf of the vendors.
It is hard with the GPS in the delivery. If it doesn't match,
Right.
we don't recognize that address, we're not gonna deliver your package,
Right.
okay?
So we'll keep it going. Let's see, Steve Hedden, Mohawk Mountain, asked me if I'd write a letter to support the renewal of their lease from the state of Connecticut. They have a long-term, I believe it's a 25-year lease with the state of Connecticut for the ski area. And I told him I'd be glad to do it. I wrote a draft. And would be glad to change this at all, but it's thought it would be very important for us to come out and go on record with DEP. I'm sure they'll get the lease renewed, but I think it's also important for us to.
When is their leases, it's up sometime in the next year?
Yeah.
Is that how that,
But I think it's important for the town to go on record and give Mohawk
Sure.
credit for all they do
Yeah.
for the community and the whole region, so. That's
absolutely.
one business that actually profits from the snow
Yeah.
and gets everybody some recreation and entertainment during the winter season. So anyway, with your permission, I'll send this off to DEP.
I move that you can send that to DEP for selectmen support for Mohawk Mountain's continued lease.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Next is the Bend project. We've had these maps. The next thing we'll need is, I believe CLMP has a license agreement, so I'll get a copy of that. We can look at that and send that to Curly. To refresh, the HVA has a grant over $200,000 to upgrade the parking, toilet facilities, emergency boat launch, or general boat launch at the kayak launch, I guess is what they call it, at the parking lot south of the Hughes Library in West Cornwall. Any thoughts on the design? They're gonna have to go to inland wetlands, they're gonna have to go to River Commission, probably. Seemed pretty straightforward, pretty much like an improvement. This is a couple issues that are.
I think from our end, it was more a question of how much continued responsibility are we gonna
Right.
accept, right? Yeah, so.
So we'll ask for language and then review that as it goes along. But I think overall there's a clear public benefit to improving that site in these ways. And this again would require town meeting approval and probably planning and zoning approval, so it's a ways away, but at least there's some preliminary drawings.
Still talking about it. So.
Right. Okay. Tax refund. We have some modest tax refunds, one of $14.90 for overpayment of real estate tax. Second one is motor vehicle tax, $76.29. Jean Boulay, the tax collector, recommends that we do these, so I make a motion that we grant these tax refunds as requested by the tax collector.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Next, I believe I sent you a copy of the quality data service software contract proposal, which is used jointly by the tax assessor or by the tax collector and the assessor. I've sent it off to Pearlie. I have not got it back yet. The only thing I did notice was that his charges were somewhat greater than what we had budgeted.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. And why? And is
Right.
this the only guy? It's the only company?
That's
Put
the
all our
word.
eggs in one basket again?
That's the word. He has 90% of the business in Connecticut, and the other 10% is being phased out because the guy retired. So anyway, I'll dig into this a little bit more.
Where were we when that was going on, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'll dig into this more. Some of the work's can be done this year, as far as training and things. So it may be possible for us to, some of the work's being done this year, break this out. We're generally having a good year financially. So instead of increasing next year's budget, it might make sense to, if we're doing some work in May, training, some of this upfront cost. Should we get some of that stuff paid off? Again, we can pay some of it out of our contingency and reduce next year's budget appropriation, perhaps.
The original numbers that we saw, as presented by Barbara and Joanne, were they hard numbers or were they sort of guesstimates?
Well, they were numbers they got from him, but they were more like the 16,000 instead of the 22,000. So anyway, they weren't in today, they'll be in tomorrow, so we'll go back and forth and we'll find out from Pearlie. There was a couple of notes I made. Yeah. Upon commencement of quality data service support systems, the customer shall provide quality data services with remote diagnostic capabilities through the internet via TCP, IP, and VPN to all workstations. So there's a few questions.
That's standard stuff.
That's standard. So we'll just need to make sure we have everything that we are supposed to be.
I think TCP is a standard protocol. I don't know what it stands for. I've seen it a
Okay.
bunch of times. I don't know
Good.
what it means.
most people have it.
Most people have
It's
it.
not
It's,
fancy at
Uh-huh.
all and stuff.
that's,
Good.
and I think in general that they want access because if there's a problem, they can then fix it.
Then they
Right.
log in.
Fix it remotely.
Yeah.
Right,
If
they
they
fix
can.
it. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, there, Barbara and Jean want to, this is, a spring project. They have to get this going in the training, this kind of stuff in the spring. So what we'll do is try to nail this down, get it perfected, and probably signed off in some form unless we find a better deal, which doesn't sound like it's out there.
She's not going to use this for the July set of bills that are going out, or is she? Or does
It
she?
sounds like it because we're already being trained in the transition. The other system starts July 1st. So it sounds like we have to get the training done this spring to bring our systems up so we can do exactly that.
Oh, okay.
So he was willing to defer the cost to next year if we need him to do that. We may not need him to do that. We may.
But we do
Maybe.
need them to install everything and have.
Right, we need to get the training done so we don't have problems. I mean, they really have to have it done, you know, as soon as we set the mill rate and get the tax bills going and all that stuff, so it's really an April, May project.
Right,
Yeah.
well, the bills, the tax bills, when they go out July 1st, they've been created in June.
Yep. Okay, so anyway, we'll work on that and keep that on our agenda until we get it resolved. Northwest Hills Council of Governments report. We had an interesting meeting this month. Had the Secretary of State come out. There are several issues in front of the legislature that will have significant impact on municipalities if changes are made, and on people in this area. Secretary of State came out to pitch a proposal to overhaul the Registrar of Voters, make it from a two-person elected position to a one-person probably appointed position. And so that's gotten a lot of pushback from the Association of Registrars. And at our meeting, there were several registrars there, including registrars from Salisbury, who came out, and I got extra copies of their letters to give you both. And that sort of outlines a lot of the concerns that people have about this proposal. There have been a lot of problems with voting in some of the large municipalities, and the concern of a lot of the small to medium-sized municipalities is that changes that are made in light of several problems may not actually make things better. So that's something that's going to be playing out in the legislature. Probably one of the more controversial parts of the budget that came up was a proposal to close the Torrington Social Service Office, and I believe we passed a resolution at the COG meeting. All of 20 towns for selectmen and mayors came out opposed to that because it would mean people from as far away as Salisbury, Canaan, Cornwall would have to go down to Waterbury for their social service needs, and this is probably the most vulnerable section of our population. And as somebody said, to ask people to go to an already burdened office is not a great setup. It's just people won't go, they won't get the services.
Right. Trouble getting to Torrington, let alone getting all the way to Waterbury.
That people will probably won't go get the services, make the problems worse. Other places have offices within walking distance. So anyway, so we are mounting a bipartisan effort to keep that office open, and we are meeting with our legislative delegation tomorrow at the Yukon Torrington branch at 7:45 a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. So we're talking about that, and also there's another issue that came up. Apparently there's a bill out there that the state would collect all this car tax and then give it back as it saw fit depending on your mill rate.
Yeah.
So at an equal amount. So guess what? We wouldn't probably get all ours back.
I don't understand why they don't just indicate a flat amount, what the car tax is worth.
What
And
the
then
car's worth.
what's your, well, not, I mean, that, they already do that. They already tell you what your car is worth. That's already state determined. And then it's a formula which is multiplied by your own personal your town's mill rate, by the town mill rate. The mill rates vary, so that's what makes it uneven. But if they just said, we're gonna use the mill rate of X, we've already determined the value of your car.
Right.
Now we're gonna determine the mill rate, and you're gonna pay your taxes to the town,
So everybody will pay
Just say no.
$500 for a Volkswagen.
period. That's it.
Or whatever.
Whatever the,
So
whatever
they-
the figure is.
Yeah, instead of this whole thing of collecting it and then giving parts of
Yeah,
it
yeah,
back.
because you won't get it back.
That's
You
not
won't
good,
get it.
that's not so good. So,
But
anyway, so
your
those,
car parked in Cornwall and not Waterbury too, so.
But that doesn't, that shouldn't enter into, that's the whole point of why they're.
Well, it's where your house is located too.
But the difference is your house has a different value in Waterbury than it does in Cornwall.
Oh, I
But the
suppose
car-
on the open market, yeah.
But the car shouldn't. The car should be worth, a car in a certain condition should be worth the same amount, whether you're selling it in Waterbury or
I see
selling
what
it
you're
in
saying
Cornwall.
there, yeah.
so there's a lot of, there's other concerns that doesn't affect us directly, is the Resident State Trooper Program. Towns with that are gonna have to absorb 100% of the cost instead of 70% of the cost. And we do not have one, so we're not directly affected. We could be affected by the DEP increasingly stringent requirements on dealing with stormwater, requiring road or was it townwide picking up of leaves and this kind of stuff. So anyway, so it will be a lively session, but as I said, I think, you know, the issues come and go, but I think especially this
Well, one of the issues I just
closing
read.
this social service thing is even worse than closing the motor vehicle. I mean, they were gonna close Winston Motor Vehicle a couple of years ago, and
Right,
that was bad, but this is worse.
That they've eliminated all the funding for all the probate courts. That was in the paper in the last day or two. I think
So-
it's one line buried somewhere, and all of a sudden it's I don't know how much of effect that would have.
Right. So,
At the moment, there is no state funding involved. There's no
Ah.
state funding for the probate courts.
so somebody found that,
Right,
right, so.
saving, I think, $30 million for the state.
There was one letter that you sent us,
There's-
sort of a form letter that you were gonna send out. It had a typo in it. What's this one? This is for Litchfield County Dispatch.
Yes, we're gonna come up to that next.
Okay.
This is another thing I got, just for showing up. This has, this is Connecticut Needs Social Service Programs, 2014. You may have already seen this, but this shows some statistics of various towns in the area. So, let's see, Litchfield County Dispatch. We've been asked by Litchfield County Dispatch to write a letter to oppose the change in funding for regional dispatch centers. This may cost, somewhere I saw, this may cost Litchfield County Dispatch to lose several $100,000. So I've been asked to write. And if they lose the state funding, it means they'd have to increase their local share.
Percent higher, they're still higher than Torrington, higher than North Canyon. Higher than Winchester. Higher than Waterbury. Waterbury is
Yeah.
11 and a half. That's in 20.
So the change in the formula was that originally the state gave a bonus for combining dispatch centers. They still want to combine them more, but they got a bonus for the amount of towns that are in each dispatch center. Thinking, especially in small towns, it doesn't make sense for each town to have its own dispatch center. So there's a bonus for everybody getting together. Litchfield County Dispatch, I believe, has the largest amount of towns in a dispatch center. So now other towns are saying, no, that's not really important. What's really important is your population. How many people do you serve, not how many towns do you serve. So again, the smaller towns would get on the receiving end of that formula change as opposed to what we originally thought we were getting into.
Sounds like an argument 275 years ago when it was, or 250 years ago, populated states and sparsely populated states.
So depending on what town you live in, whether you have a big population or you live in an area with a dispatch, you come down on different sides of the issue. So anyway, I think there's a compelling argument to be made to keep the system in the state funding the way it was originally agreed to. So I would like to send this letter to the Department of Emergency Services.
Yeah.
And you found a template error somewhere.
How many towns does LCD?
Pretty much 20 towns.
And
They also do Torrington Police and Fire. I believe Winston is still self-dispatching. So, and it's basically the same. It's basically the same towns as the Northwest COG. I mean, you're basically Litchfield County, except in this case, Winston isn't in LCD, it is in the COG, and some of the towns that are in the COG, like that are in the COG, that aren't in COG, like Thomaston may do this or whatever. So there's a slight, on the edges, there's a slight variation, but basically it's Litchfield County.
in Torrington,
Torrington is in the Torrington, LCD is based in the Torrington Firehouse,
right.
and they also dispatch the Torrington Police Department.
So they do the.
They do fire and
So they
police.
do fire and police,
okay, thank you,
just
thank
for Torrington,
And then police just for.
yeah. So, and it's obviously,
And the
they get a
Milford-
separate contract for doing the police.
Separate contract for doing that.
Yeah,
And
separate
Milford
charge.
is part of Litchfield County or is not part of
No,
Litchfield?
they do, they're their own little.
They're their own thing, but that is part of Litchfield County.
I think that was, yeah, so some of the towns in that area, like Bridgewater and Sherman are not part of our
So
COG.
I'll
but
rephrase
they
my
are.
question. How many, or I'll add to the question. It's many of the towns of Litchfield County.
Right.
How many, what's the population that we're covering with this?
Oh, total, it's somewhere around 100,000,
So 100,000 people
yeah,
approximately.
approximately.
But unfortunately, that's not gonna, doesn't hold too much.
Right, so you
compared
may
to-
find two suburban towns that have, 70,000
Right, right,
people,
right,
but
right,
they're
right.
only two towns. There's some towns that are very small that still have their own dispatch center, like a Winston, that's only, whatever that is, 20,000 people.
20,000, yeah.
Yeah.
How do they afford that?
Well, Winston's not doing too well
Well, I
financially.
know they're not, so maybe that's
That's a good question.
part of the
I
problem.
don't have the answer to that, but that's one of the reasons why the state pushes these regional incentives is because it's much less expensive for us to do things regionally than by ourselves, because it just creates higher taxes. Whereas the same thing, we join the Northwest Hills COG or this LCD, when Torrington joined, the more towns that join, your per capita costs go down until they change the formula. So anyway, with your permission, I'll send this.
And that includes like if you have a medical emergency, it still goes to the same dispatch center, right?
Yes, well, it's
Because they come
911.
out like, the second they're there. But sometimes it seems like if you were to just call for, you know, an automotive accident where someone's not hurt, sometimes it just seems like, he's old. Wait, really? Old? Are you kidding me?
Well, yeah, I better not venture too much, but some calls are then routed, they're answered here, and if it's, say, if it's a car accident without injury, then it would get channeled to the barracks.
So it's how they channel it compared to, this is an emergency, you need to be there
Right.
right away, because I know like the fire department and the ambulance crew, they're there.
Right. So
Second.
Right. Part of it's predicated on what you say to start with.
That's how they then route it in their
Right.
system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, because that's,
Yeah,
that would
it's
seem
all-
to make sense if they're having multiple calls come
Yeah.
in.
It's
and-
all protocol,
Yeah,
yeah.
you,
Computer assisted dispatch. Okay, so it's fine if I send this off?
Yeah, just fix that one typo,
Okay, it's picking up. Let's see, so that's our additions.
Did you need that in a motion?
Sure, why don't we have a motion to write the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. Is there a second?
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. So, thank you, Joyce. Any public comments? Yes, Joanne?
I was going to ask, you had told us during the railroad discussion and the COG meeting that you voted at the COG meeting based on, without input from the board. So I was just wondering if the board would consider, when you know COG's agenda coming up, that you would advise the first selectman on your opinions as to how he might vote, because although it's not, you know, I guess there's no way to make it binding, what is voted on by our first selectman at the COG meetings impacts what happens in our town after that. Like on this case of the Secretary of State recommending that we no longer have elected registrars of voters, I'd like to know that you provide some input to Gordon as to how you two feel, so that his vote will represent all of us in town.
So we would need more information from
Well-
you. Like, I like that you do this report, this COG report now.
Yeah?
It's good. Gives us some
I mean,
information, but if we could have like information on things like that in advance. And if
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know
the
there's
thing,
a
the
vote
problem is
coming up.
a lot of the stuff doesn't get, I mean, you get the COG packet, but it's like the Secretary of State's, like, I know about that, you know, sometimes ahead of time, but a lot of things get decided and discussed, right? I mean, your information gets presented at the meeting, it's hard to prejudge some of these issues.
So they don't give you
initiative.
time to, they don't present the information and then give you time to bring it back to your
No,
board
it's
before
boom,
a
boom.
decision is
And it's
made.
also, as I said before, it's an organization of the chief elected officials, it's not an organization of boards of selectmen. But in a lot of the stuff we get presented there, and I'll be glad to send you all the packets, all the information I get as we get it. If you have input or thought before I go, that'd be
Yeah,
a lot
I
of,
know they sent
but a lot of
me
stuff.
the agenda and the minutes, but I don't get the C
Right.
attached things that you
Mhm.
got, I don't get any of that.
right.
But if we start conferring by
It would have to be a
email,
meeting.
right,
Right.
there'd have to be a
You're
meeting.
gonna, and also I get that, yeah. I probably get the agenda, then we meet in between our meetings.
Sometimes, yeah, depending on how the
Right.
schedule all works out.
So we'll keep you.
Yeah,
I do
like I
notice
said,
that
I
sometimes
appreciate
that-
the,
No, I do notice that sometimes in the COG minutes, certain representatives abstain from voting. I mean, when the town winds up being bound by decisions that are made by one person and it's not representing the whole board, we're really being cut out of our representative government in town. And maybe that's a much bigger issue that the COG needs to look at. So regionalization, as Gordon was pointing out, saves money and has a lot of attractive things, but then it seems it comes back and bites us. It looks good in the beginning and we all jump on, and then we find that decisions are being made for us.
Yeah, so do you think like the COG is considering that now that they're so much bigger than they used to be, that maybe they need to plan 2 or 3 months in advance instead of sending you the agenda and the minutes and the information on Thursday, and then their meeting is before we meet?
Well, all these things, I mean, all the things I reported on tonight, these are legislative items, and that's gonna change. Those hearings are set, you know, sometimes you get 24-hour notice. I mean, a lot of these issues we're talking about are ongoing issues with the legislature, and bills change, bills get submitted, hearings are held, you know, almost instantly, so you don't have a whole lot of warning to do that.
So were there like votes taken on like or the COG's opinion of the registrar of voters, the Social Security office, the LCD? I mean, were all of those things all decided at this last meeting, or they're giving you time to?
Somewhere and somewhere. I can't remember exactly which ones weren't.
It's not really decision-making, though. It's an opinion, like you said. But
Support of a
but the
particular
bigger-
thing, but
the bigger the regional planning agency gets, the stronger it gets, the more pull it
Absolutely.
has on Hartford, so.
okay. So I guess maybe that's what we need to know, or which of these items are you still discussing and that you might want to get more board input on? You know what I mean? Like, so the registrar of voters, has that decision been made? It's
Well,
going to go from a 2-person elected position to a 1-person?
Well, I think that's a vote. That's a vote that will happen in the legislature, or there'll be a bill, and the bill will be amended, and then they'll.
But the COG is deciding if they're going to support it or
Right.
not support it. So did
Yeah.
you say, yes, I support, or no, I don't support? Or
I
that
think
didn't
there
come
was-
up yet?
I don't think we've actually come out, but I think in that particular issue, there was probably 6 or 7 selectmen all voting opposition or voicing opposition to this proposal, and I had my same points that I had that most people made, so I don't think there was any support for that proposal at our group, so.
And the other 13 said nothing? So it was
Right,
just
but
7
I-
saying we're against
Yeah,
it, and the
but I
other
think
13
that
just didn't
People know
register.
what the consensus of the group is. It's pretty clear that they supported keeping the social service agency open. They were opposed to that change of registrars. They were opposed to this stormwater increased regulation. And those are some of the big issues.
They're opposed to the stormwater because it's like an unfunded
Unfunded mandate, and some of it
that
doesn't
was
seem to make sense on a smaller
for the
scale.
smaller towns.
Bob Valentine's doing a lot of work on mandated ethics codes. That's one thing that's come up again. So individual selectmen have gone in to testify on various bills. So, anyone wants to come tomorrow morning at 7:45, it's open. It's the time, a lot of the stuff too, you've got to, in order to get the legislators' ears, you have to get there before 9, so I suggest they
As
have.
I said tonight, you ask them whether the proposal to no funding for the probate court,
Right,
I mean, it hasn't been, I read it in a big article in the Hartford Current,
Really?
and make it up.
right.
Is it possible, since the COG website's supposed to be interactive, or say interactive, but a resource for information, that they could put up constant updates on
Right.
these legislative priorities?
That's a good
Just
idea.
a little bit on each one, and here's where we're at with it.
I will suggest that. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, so then we can pay bills before going to executive session.
Joyce, could I get the LCD letters, whatever there is on that, please?
This thing that he's gonna send?
What's it?
Yeah, and is there a letter from them too?
Another, oh, I'm sorry, I did have.
But that might explain enough in
Had the
there.
open space thing, so we,
Oh,
before we
yeah.
go into executive session, I did ask Pearlie for a legal opinion about this open space fund, how it's set up, and it came in this afternoon. I haven't looked at it yet. This is the fund established by Planning and Zoning Commission. It has approximately $20,000 in it. The Cornwall Conservation Trust has asked for $5,000 for Trinity.
And this one.
Doesn't really answer the question. We asked him to give us a way to use the fees in lieu of open space.
I think he is though, he's telling us it has to be approved.
Only in this one instance. I think we were looking for a way to be able to spend the funds just in general.
I think the only way we can spend them is for open space, because that's what the regulation, the zoning subdivision regulation provides, that it
Right.
be used for the purpose of open space or requiring additional land for open space or recreation. So either.
So that's what we were asking for,
Right.
a determination of how to make that happen, any funds. But what he gave us
Any,
was just a proposal for the Cornwall Conservation Trust.
as opposed to any fund? I'm trying to
I
understand.
don't know, the Elderly Housing Fund trust, any other trust that came before us and said, you know, we would like to make a request to use a certain amount of money from your fee and lieu fund.
But it
How do you
can-
make that happen?
But it has to be for this expressed purpose of open space land,
Right,
or recreational land.
right, but not specific to any one trust.
No.
The main thing is, in order, the Planning and Zoning Commission set up this fund. It's now $20,000, and our question was, how can you access, how can this money be used? Because right now we've been accumulating money without using it.
Right.
So the question I asked him is, who has to approve this expenditure? Does Planning and Zoning, does anybody else? And the answer on the second page is decision of the town of Cornwall to require affirmative vote of the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Cornwall Town Meeting. So to access this, we'd have to have language at a town meeting that would be approved by the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to specifically authorize disbursement of funds out of this fund to go to acquire a particular piece of land to be perpetually used for open space. That's the only thing the fund can be used for, so it can't, I don't believe it can't be used for,
Right,
say
but
to build a
so,
new firehouse or
Right.
something.
but so every time someone requests to use that money, we have to go to a town meeting to
Yeah.
make that happen?
Yes.
I thought we were asking him for a way to decide to use that money, like, so that you didn't have to go to a town meeting every time. You have this fund. It's set up
Well-
so that you can use it for this purpose. You don't have to go to a town meeting every time to say,
Well,
yes, we
you'd-
want to
you'd
use
have
it
to
for
go
this
to-
line item.
You'd have to go, because the only thing this can be used for is to buy land.
Right,
So it has to go to individual projects. And this would not be appropriate to put in, the only way that, because it is town funds, the only way to spend it would have to have town meeting authorization.
Each time.
This is not gonna be in the regular general fund operating budget. We're not gonna have open space acquisitions, because I think in order to do it, we have to really say we're going to use this money, or this money is going to be used to acquire this piece. If we bought Foot Fields or something like that, or now Trinity, you have to then get town meeting permission to do it, because no money can be spent, no public money can be spent without the approval of the Board of Finance and the town meeting. So it wouldn't be an automatic thing that we could say, oh, there's an ad in the paper for something, and we'd have to go back to the town meeting every time we wanted to spend money out of the fund, which I think is fine, because if people say, well, that doesn't make any sense, then the money sits there. I mean, it's like anything else that,
Right, well, that was the question when I was on planning and zoning, was like, okay, we have this money, how does it get spent?
right,
So.
so somebody
I
has
thought
to
that that's
initiate.
what we were trying to ask Curly, how does it get spent? But you're saying that it could get spent, but it needs to get spent individually,
Right,
based on a
somebody
town
has-
vote,
And approved,
right.
based on a town meeting.
yes.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, because with $20,000, you can't buy any land in Cornwall right now. You have to be part of a larger project.
Right, well, that's, I'm just trying
So
to get
it limits the amount of people that can,
get the steps that are
All
involved.
land sales and purchases have to go to town meeting, correct?
yes.
Oh, what
Okay.
kind of land purchases?
All land sales or purchases by the
Mhm.
town. But this isn't,
By the town.
You're not
but
buying
this isn't
anything.
town,
But
right?
we're not buying it.
Right.
But any
We're
expenditures,
selling it,
any
sort of.
any
Make it a
expenditures of
donation.
public funds have to go to the town meeting too, plus have to go to the Board of Finance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Had to be
essentially, we are
approved.
making a donation
Well, up to 20,000
to the
20,000 or
trust
more, right?
from our funds,
You can, but still that would
from
require,
town funds.
An appropriation.
So, while this is information on how to do it,
right?
it would be interesting to know whether the Conservation Trust would want all this to happen, or is this, I think what's interesting here is in the acquisition and preservation of property as an open space in perpetuity, said amount to be paid only upon the town's approval of the open space restriction to be placed on said parcel and to be paid only at the closing. I mean, does that in some way restrict them from being able to go through the process of doing it?
I think for the large amounts involved, this is fairly symbolic. So I'll show this, Bart Jones is going to the Board of Finance tomorrow night to talk about this, because this would have to go, again, to the Board of Finance, to a town meeting. We would probably do this at the May meeting also, so we would have several things to do besides the budget.
Right, right.
But it would make sense to do it then too, if we can get this all lined up. But Bart hasn't seen this. I don't imagine this would be a problem.
Problem for them.
Right.
Okay, well,
Because they're talking perpetual,
right.
perpetuity anyway. And we don't have to do, I mean, this is just to discuss this now. We probably next month we'll decide, we have a budget town meeting, I believe it's on the May 15th. That is, town meeting May 15th. So we would add the generator and this, and probably the Gates bequest or funding the 275th. Go on that also, so we'd have some additional items that would have to be on an approved town meeting call. And if, again, Pearlie says any questions, give me a call if you have any questions. We can send that to him.
Right. There's a certain set of, as Karen said, there are many expenditures that the Board of Selectmen can approve on their own, or there's others that they can approve on their own with the Board of Finance. And then there's a group that requires the town meeting.
Right.
And land is one of the things that maybe leases. I'm sure there's all listed on that.
Right, and planning and zoning has to be involved if we have real estate transactions also. Okay, any other comments on this letter? We'll put it on our,
With the exception of his typo.
we will keep it on our agenda for the next couple of meetings. Okay, so then I'll make a motion to go into executive session, real estate near the West Cornwall Firehouse.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Aye. Thanks for coming. Have a safe